Hello everyone, this is Vilopan or reviloo, whatever you want to call me, and today we'll be reading A City That Dreams for Two, written by Twosetmeridian in their one-shot book, Counterpoint. It all starts with that innocuous interview question. What were your dreams as a child? Brett's long known his own dream buried deep within his chest. He's only ever been living and working and breathing towards that dream ever since the first moment he's held a violin in between his tiny palms and imagined himself on a grand stage. His life has always been all about the music, so when the question comes, his answer is succinct and resolute. To become a soloist, Brett says, voice unwavering, and travel the world. Out of camera frame, the interviewer smiles and nods. The man seated beside him, on the other hand, delivers the punchline to a joke Brett hadn't really prepared for. How's that going for you? Brett's mind goes blank, and then, oh, you little shit. Here's the thing. Brett's dreams start and end with Eddie Chen, if he has to be really honest with himself. The first time he looks across the orchestra seats at his newfound friend from math tutoring, watching that excited glint in the 13-year-old's eyes with delight, Brett feels reaffirmed. He thinks, I'm definitely going to be a soloist. The first time he looks across the table at the conservatory and sees Eddie's eyes sparkling with promise, the beginnings of that crazy idea of Twosetviolin hanging in the air between them, Brett feels his heart give way. He thinks, oh no, I'm definitely not going to be a soloist. The first time they make a video and begin to receive recognition as a classical comedy unit, Brett looks across the room at Eddie's mischievous, triumphant grin and he thinks, oh my god, he thinks, it's you, it's you, it's you. Maybe it's because Brett had been expecting Eddie to follow suit with the same dream of becoming a soloist that he gets completely blindsided by his friend's actual answer. To be a lumberjack, actually. Brett can't help it. The disbelieving chuckle comes tumbling out of his mouth before he can stop it. A taste of Eddie's own medicine is at hand, then. How did that work out for you? Despite the teasing, Eddie laughs, and the matter is pushed to the side in favor of the next question in the interview. Still, days after the fact, the thought continues to simmer at the back of Brett's mind, bristly sharp like a particularly persistent porcupine. Why a fucking lumberjack, of all things? Is it still bothering you? Brett startles out of his reverie, turns to look at his best friend smirking beside him, and no, he's not giving him any inch of higher ground in this. What is? Brett asks, sweetly. The lumberjack thing? Eddie shoves his hands in his pockets and rocks on his heels back and forth. Brett leans against the street lamp and crosses his arms over his chest. Still wondering why? Yeah, because I thought you said you wanted to be a soloist too. Remember your orientation week? Eddie had told him all about it back then, when he'd first joined up with him at the con. Brett still recalls that day so clearly in his mind's eye. Not that Eddie needs to know about that. Well, I wasn't lying if that's what you mean. Being a soloist was my dream, but it wasn't my first dream. Brett's eyebrows furrow. It doesn't make any sense. And? What's that supposed to mean? Eddie looks at him for a moment, gaze unreadable, before a twinkling smile sneaks its way onto his lips. Figure it out. Figure it out. Like it's something so blatantly obvious that Brett should have known about it by now. What the fuck? Right, Brett says in the end. But really, he doesn't get it. Not yet. Days later, Eddie suddenly deems it the optimal time to go stargazing on the roof. And Brett is understandably confused about all this. They're not exactly the kind of friends who do that kind of stuff, but then the other man goes scrambling up the ladder with a pile of blankets in tow, and so he has no choice but to follow at this point. Is this for a video idea? Brett just barely gets the question out in the midst of all the huffing and puffing he's been doing. God, he needs more exercise. Because if it is, then it's kinda not a video idea, Brett, the taller man replies. And there's something about the way he says it that shuts Brett up. It feels important. He doesn't know why, but it does. Once they're on the roof, they set up a little blanket fortress, and in no time at all, they're both swaddled like newborns and chatting about anything and everything. It's all out of the blue in hindsight how Eddie broaches the subject of the lumberjack dream. Really? Brett shakes his head, grin wide against his lips. Of all things he'd been expecting, this is somewhere at the bottom of the list. Now. Hey, you want to hear it or not? They poke at each other for a while, laughter like tinkling notes in the air, and then silence. The air suddenly turns serious. It was silly, Eddie whispers, words spoken so low that they're almost lost to the wind. Brett has to lean in closer to hear him. Brett isn't exactly complaining about that, though. Don't say that. Of course it wasn't silly. It was a child's dream. Well, so was mine. Eddie tosses his head back, hair falling into his eyes as he laughs. At least yours makes sense, right? Little Brett Yang dreaming to become a soloist and bring joy to hearts all over the face of this earth. He shrugs. And then there's little Eddie Chen, thinking of giving up his dream to become a violinist just to build Brett Yang a violin to play on and a home to come back to. It suddenly becomes that much harder for Brett to breathe. He stays silent, feels as if he's on the edge of a precipice, and Eddie's low tone makes the words seem all too much like a revelation. So yeah, maybe I just wanted to provide for you like no one else can. Build you a log cabin in the middle of the fucking outback if I had to. Be essential somehow. Eddie stops for a moment, avoids Brett's stunned gaze as he continues. I told you once that I'd follow you anywhere. And then you told me you'd bring me everywhere. Show me the world. Brett remembers that. He remembers it amidst rickety swing sets and chaotic duets of the itsy bitsy spider on tiny violins. Maybe little me just took that a bit too literally. Took it to heart like it wasn't something you said on a whim. A chuckle, low and resigned. And now here we are. Eddie waves his hand to the two of them wrapped up in blankets, looking up at the cold night sky, its shimmering stars all alight. And I'd still follow you anywhere. Brett's heartbeat is loud in his ears. Eddie, I know, Eddie interrupts, rushed as if to patch up a leaky pipe. This is kinda weird, but, you know, Twoset is getting more traction and we're booking actual shows, and so I guess I just wanted to let you know that. God, what can you even say to that in return? Thank you, Eddie, Brett murmurs, hustling up the courage to place a hand on his friend's shoulder and squeeze. Really, thank you. Eddie smiles, but it isn't as bright as his usual ones. No problem, bro. It was good to let it all out. At that, a new dream begins to take root in Brett's mind. A wild and rapturous thing. Twoset playing on stages all over the world, him and Eddie together chasing their dreams, as it should always be. I'll always be there for you, he tells Eddie, and Brett's never meant anything more in his entire life than those words. I'll bring you everywhere, anywhere you want, just like I promised. It is then that finally, he sees that beloved crooked grin lighting up his friend's face. I'll hold you to that, bro, Eddie says, turning his gaze to the sky and speaking no more. My dream has always been you, Brett thinks, hands shaking with the need to show the most important person in the world just how much he's worth everything. I've always loved... But no, not yet. Those three little words, a soft and gentle and warm spark in his chest. Brett will keep them hidden for now. He'll give Eddie everything he deserves before he tells him. In the meantime, he slings an arm around his best friend's shoulder, pulls him closer as they stargaze and dream together. They have time. That's all. If you're interested in reading the full fic, please check it out on Wattpad add again the one-shot book titled Counterpoint. Obviously, show Mary some love, and have a nice day.